We'll start with this. And you know what? It was kind of a blessing in disguise. Our show got a little delayed today because Dominic kind of found a nice ancillary piece of, I guess you could say, I can't even really think of the word. I guess an ancillary document to this story, to accompany this story that I did get to read it. Don't think, Joe, you got a chance to take a look at it. Highly recommend reading it, though. I didn't read the whole thing, but I will read. I'm actually going to read it.
It's long. It's a literally like an FTC legal document. So I don't expect you to read it, but there are important bits that we'll go over once you explain the story.
If you're not used to the language, it's like the respondents,
yeah.
Mitch Lowe, referred to as Lowe. Like you can kind of peruse it and get the idea. But it is what I read about maybe 8 or 9 pages of it before the show. Really fascinating read, I must say. God, corporations and CEOs are slime balls. Breaking news.
Oh my
God.
But that college humor video is like legit.
True.
With the MoviePass CEO.
I know what you're talking about. I know exactly the one you're talking about. But MoviePass back in the news, and of course, as per the last 3 years, if MoviePass has been in the news, it's not good press. But MoviePass apparently, according to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, they came out this week. And they revealed Monday that the company engaged in several nefarious, I always love when I get to use that word, practices to prevent customers from seeing movies. MoviePass might be going on 2 years and no longer existing, but dirt is still being thrown on the grave, and in this case, rightfully so. I've never bashed I just want to say this just to start. I've never bashed something so much that was such a godsend to me.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Every time this thing was a great pacifier.
Every time they're in the news for something like they did, or like just like any heat that they were getting, I'm just like, man, for something I loved so much, I've never had like been like so disappointed and hated towards it at the same time.
But moving on, though, if you remember MoviePass, it was the subscription service that was around since 2011. But nobody had heard of it. And then it started getting sort of plain. It started getting sort of known when they launched their subscription service to see unlimited movies. It was a subscription service based on going to the movies and seeing movies in the theater. And how it finally got known was when they dropped their prices significantly down to $9.95 a month. For $9.95 a month, you could see unlimited movies so long as you purchased and the movie tickets through the app. And it was unbelievable. They gave you a credit card thing. I still have mine in my drawer over here.
I gotta see if they got
they gave you the MoviePass little debit credit card, whatever you want to call it. Looked like a Visa MasterCard thing. But it was $9.95 a month. Eventually, it was up to $14.95 a month. But for the frequency that I saw movies in the theater, and Joe at the time, my co-host on Sleepless with Steve, not much has changed. It was a godsend to 2 college kids that were going to the movies so damn prolifically. I was seeing 8 to 10 movies a month. And you got to think, $9.95 is the price of a ticket in a lot of markets. So, the thing would pay for itself in at least 2 trips. Yeah. No more than 2 trips.
Especially for me, who, like, when I joined the show, you were seeing tons of movies. So there'd be times, like, we would open up with the movie we saw, both of us. And then, like, it was a 3-hour show back then. And then the next hour was your solo reviews. And then the final hour was, like, news. So I would just sit there for an hour just hearing you review stuff and, like, chime in every now and then. But once MoviePass came out, it was, like, the whole time we talked about every movie.
But anyway, these nefarious practices that MoviePass engaged in, and it's not really allegedly. Like the FTC has confirmed they did this. There's no reason
are
to
emails.
throw the word around. Allegedly, there's emails, there's texts, there's a lot of stuff in this report. So here's a few of the things they've done, or they did while the company was intact. They actively tried to prevent consumers from seeing movies because they were hemorrhaging money. Shocker, but. Number one thing that they did, they invalidated users' accounts, claiming it detected fraud related to their accounts. And it would lock up to 75,000 users out of their account. I had that happen to me once, actually. Funnily enough, I went to go see a movie with a friend of mine, and it would not let me buy it, locked me out of my account. This was in June of 2018. I remember that because it was The Incredibles 2. I do remember that.
Why did it lock you out? What was the reason cited? Like,
I'm telling you, in that moment you're like in a haste and you're trying to go see the movie
sure.
to begin with. I think it had something to do with something like, your account's been locked for security purposes or something. And at that point, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't shocked because at this point the company was caving in on itself. Like there were reports coming out left and right. At the app sometimes wouldn't even load. So, and I mean, I'm one of the heavy users. I'm probably one of the 2% they targeted. Me and Joe probably.
Yeah.
Just how frequently we saw movies. Another act that they did, they purposely launched the ticket verification program, which was a pain in the ass. That thing they launched it with bugs so as to hinder customers from buying tickets to begin with. That thing was a pain in the ass, if you remember that. You had to take a picture of the movie ticket to verify. And then another thing that they did was they set what's called and what is referred to in this FTC report as tripwires that blocked frequent users of the app that prevented them from making a purchase. So it was acting like the app would know or the service would know that you were a heavy user and it wouldn't agree to let your purchase go through.
I think that happened.
This is conspiracy.
I think that happened to me towards the end of its lifetime because I remember when I was logging on, and this is what just made me ultimately stop using it and switch to A-list. When I started logging on, for some reason the showtimes were just not popping up for me, and they weren't sold out or anything, and I'm just like, all right, well, the service is still in use at these theaters, because I would ask my friend who also had it, and then also showtimes would pop up. I would click on them 10 minutes before or whatever, because they had some stupid rule like that too eventually, where you had to check in 10 minutes before a showtime, or you had to be within a certain range of the theater before you can check in. And I did that, and every single time I did that, the app would purposely... at the time, I didn't think it'd purposely crash, but it would just crash.
I do remember that because I moved out here, and I stopped the service shortly after I did because it got to the point it was so buggy. It was so unreliable. Then there was even the time, if you remember this, it would be like a surge pricing sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't referenced. I didn't see referenced in this FTC report. But there was that like Uber surge pricing crap where you would have to pay like $3 on top of it. Like you'd be getting the ticket comped, but it would charge your account $3 or $4 extra dollars to permit to see the movie. And at that point, I was getting aggravated between that and the app and everything.
Well, the worst part was about that too, and then we could finally go into this FTC document, was when it came time for Mission Impossible and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I remember this is when everybody blew up about it. The surge pricing used to be like $3. When those movies came out, it was $10. So it was like the price of your subscription just to go see it. And it was like, well then, why not just buy the ticket at that point? Like, why am I even use the subscription?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think, honestly, Ant-Man and the Wasp might have been the last movie I saw with it. Because out here, once I moved, in July of 18, I saw the first Purge and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And those were my first two movies I saw out here. And I think that the Ant-Man and the Wasp was my back-breaking straw with MoviePass.
Mine was
because it was 4th of July, I think. Oh, yours was Venom. You lasted longer than I did. I jumped ship. I said, screw it. And by that point I was making my own money with my job and everything. So at that point it's like, I don't need the headache. But I'll say finally too, MoviePass failed to install. This blew my friggin' mind. This is in the Mashable article that we've been referencing. This blew my mind in this Mashable article. I didn't get to this part in the FTC report. I'm sure it's in there. MoviePass failed to install quote-unquote reasonable security measures to protect users' info. It stored financial info, credit card numbers, and emails in goddamn unencrypted text documents. That is corporate malpractice at the very least. When you have an online commerce website and you're storing shit in a rich text file or something, that's unfathomable.
Hey, Steve. According to point 44 in the FTC case file, respondent MoviePass represented in the relevant part that it, quote, takes information security very seriously and, quote, uses reasonable administrative, technical, physical, and managerial measures to protect consumers. They didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of that at all.
Yeah, I take my lungs seriously. That's why I vape. Come on, man. That was... of all this nefarious crap that they've pulled, that had to be the most unbelievable thing. This was backed by Helios and Matheson. This was backed by an enormous
These are the
venture
people who brought us
capitalist
Gotti with John Travolta.
Hey, they did bring us American Animals, though.
Okay,
That
all right,
movie
yeah.
was dope.
Okay,
That
yeah.
movie was dope. Okay, that made my top 10 of the year of 2018. That movie was dope. Okay, but yeah, somebody needs to make a movie on this whole saga. Somebody needs to
It's
make
ripe
a movie
for
on
it.
the movie.
Oh my god, I am so waiting for the movie in this. Hey, Joe. So when the FTC is usually invoked in casual conversation, I usually hear it brought up by like 12-year-olds when they're complaining about a video game and how it didn't turn out so good. So like I remember when Mass Effect 3 came out and like the ending sucked for that. I'm like, this ending sucks so much. I'm gonna file an FTC complaint and we're gonna go after you, BioWare. And then it's like you just hear that shit. Like say what? Yeah, a Karen will like bring it out and be like, you're a small business. The coffee was cold. I'm gonna call the FTC. You'll hear some bullshit about it. But dude, Joe, can you switch to the document? That first page right there.
I got you.
United States of America before the Federal Trade Commission in the matter of MoviePass Inc., Helios and Matheson, Mitchell Lowe, Theodore Farnsworth. That is some serious shit. And if you jump to page 6, point 16, both Lowe and Farnsworth were aware of the deceptive nature of the password disruption program, even at the time they were formulating it and understood its negative effects on consumers. When a government agency so plainly gives you this like charge, you are in deep shit. Because usually they won't throw that shit. Maybe like some hotshot prosecutor will do that, but no, this is like the FTC on like a city level, but like this is the FTC and they're serious about it. So go to point C in point 16. In response to these concerns, Lowe responded, quote, "Okay, I get it. So let's try this with a small group. Let's say like 2% of our highest volume users." Like they have the evidence. Yeah. It's abounded in text, in emails. Figures that they're not smart enough to put their user data in an encrypted anything. So of course all this stuff is going to leak out.
I can't imagine. Jesus Christ, I bet you Mitchell Lowe's email was still up on his damn computer if they couldn't even encrypt the documents that held your financial information, for Christ's sake. This stuff must not have been that hard to obtain. The FTC is like, we got an easy one, folks.
Honestly, if you're at all interested in this case, but you're not really into like legal documents, who the hell is, right? They're weird people. But this honestly is kind of a fascinating read. And if you're really interested,
it's very
in MoviePass,
accessible.
It's not bad. It's only 13 pages, and it actually breaks it down point by point, with a lot of background and stuff. So I would actually like recommend it. Challenge yourself a little bit to check this stuff out, because this case is just so ridiculous, and it's blatant. Like they had no idea what they were doing. It was just pure shooting from the hip. It really is that College Humor sketch. I'm not joking. It pretty much is that. So
and what's amazing to me is like I almost thought that like when they did this $9.95, because I remember like telling my parents and my parents' friends about it. Everybody thought it was a joke, and I'm like, I'm gonna hop on this and see how long it goes. I want to ride this till the wheels fall off, because for what I do, it's a friggin' bargain, And then it kept going and going, and then it was like, we need more money. So then they linked up with Helios and Matheson. Then they linked up with all these venture capitalists, and they're all just shoveling money like coal on a damn ship to keep this thing going. And like, I keep going back, and I had a long conversation with a buddy from college who had MoviePass too for several months. And I remember we were talking, and I said, you know what? We got to see a bunch of movies for nothing, and a ton of venture capitalists lost their ass. If that is not the American damn dream, I don't know what is. There needs to be a War Dogs crossed with Wolf of Wall Street movie on this whole thing.
Except they don't get to celebrate. They don't get to celebrate Wolf of Wall Street style, because it's just them panicking the whole time about how they're not making money.
Yeah,
from
with the
day
casino-like ending. With the casino-like ending. Like I could just hear Joe Pesci. And that was the last time street guys like us were ever given anything that effing valuable ever again.